Welcome to this SCORE webinar. This is the first in a series on ownership design provided through SCORE Mentors Green Bay.
Cool. Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. It's been really cool to kind of see multiple angles thinking about what does work look like in digital spaces. And, we've heard a little bit about, let me see here, one sec. We've heard a little bit about worker collectives across all sorts of domains. We've heard about Web3 and how it kind of charts forward the future of work for software developers, designers, consultants, accountants. And, I'm kind of coming at this, I think, from a very specific niche community of scientists, which are workers, whether they realize it or not. They tend to think that they're kind of just privileged and sheltered within the institutional safe house, being able to play as they wish. And I think that there are I would say that science and science workers are one of the few kind of areas of work that are just waiting to be disrupted. And there's tons of reasons for this, stemming from kind of institutional inefficiencies or how we think about work in scientific practice, whether it's peer review, whether it's how grants are allocated, or whether it's about climbing the academic ladder. So a little bit background about me before I kind of dive into a little bit about OPSI. I'm a neuroscientist by training and still do research. I'm also a founder of a community of scientists, developers, and advocates for open science practice that's been forming into a DAO. So I wouldn't say we're quite that mythical creature of a completely decentralized autonomous organization where we have a fully fleshed out legal wrapper and all of our operations run on smart contracts and our CEOs are just chain link keepers or autonomous agents that are executing smart contracts, right? So this kind of came together again during the COVID pandemic, which I think really was a hallmark moment for the next evolution of DAO governance. I think it was definitely the season of DAOs midway through the pandemic. I think a key part of that really had to do with people shifting from physical in-person sort of work to having to become web natives kind of at the drop of a dime. And I think that's, amongst many of the other industries that were disrupted, science was particularly so because we really relied on our equipment, our facilities, the institution gates access to a lot of the resources that we require, and they just weren't ready to kind of transition to a completely digital workflow. So COVID kind of gave scientists a hint at what a purely web-like experience could look like. And something that's quite fascinating about being digitally native is that you become more aware of your presence, your persona, your identity, your data, and your role in it all, and specifically who owns what and who gets to control or gate access to what. So OPSI came together basically as a bunch of folks we're at a hackathon. We're trying to solve issues with peer-to-peer sharing, trying to get around third-party infrastructure providers that might or might not comply with regulations in different jurisdictions. And we ended up really diving deep into the DAO rabbit hole after getting some funding from the Ocean DAO to basically scale up our solutions and put together a decentralized data commons using technology like IPFS, Filecoin, Ethereum smart contracts, and Ocean Protocol smart contracts. So, I kind of alluded to this, that science is ripe for disruption. And that's because science is really at the front lines of the progress of society and technology today, right? So scientists are the ones that are sifting through all of the knowledge, all of the data that's been collected, and trying to make sense of it to continue this crazy experiment that we have as human civilization, right? How much longer can we continue this pace of innovation that's kind of gone on overdrive since the Industrial Revolution? And a lot of that has to do with better coordination mechanisms. Can we actually communicate, work with each other, and automate away some of this overwhelming avalanche of kind of data curation, custodianship, and analytics and insight generation? So, a big kind of issue right now in science is that a lot of data isn't collected. or a lot of data that's collected isn't published alongside papers. There's a huge replication crisis right now. So it begs the question, really, what is progress, or what is what is knowledge at this point? And there's a great example of the protein structure that I showed on the last slide, alpha beta amyloid beta 56, which has been implicated in um, the basically the amyloid beta hypothesis of Alzheimer's disease. And it turned out that all this work that's been federally funded for millions and millions of dollars turned out to kind of not be that true, and some of the results were falsified. So if we can't depend on the literature that's out there, and scientists are generating reputation based on falsified or maybe not true data, and they don't even know it, how do we actually move forward? And so a lot of that has to do with scientists not talking to each other. You can think of scientists as kind of siloed within their laboratories or within their spaces, and they're trying to solve their problems. And we have an entire infrastructure of publishers and an entire economy of curators and analytics companies that perform the task of the socially anxious, or perform the missing tasks of the socially anxious scientists, and be able to kind of plug scientists together as a third party. So, we asked the question, what does the scientific society that's web native, parametrically configured around open science impact look like? And by configured, I mean actual measurable parameters and dials and toggles that you can twist and turn on or off to facilitate certain types of discourse or certain types of rigorous appraisal of research, and so on and so forth. And so what we did was we put together basically just a Discord, and we automated a bunch of flows within the Discord so that individuals were routed into different roles or different self-elected maybe tasks. And we collected data as well as we did that. And if you take a look at kind of who flooded into the Open Science DAO when we started, I think in just about end of February 2021, we had about 40% of the folks coming in were researchers of some sort, either at an institution or identified as an independent researcher. Others were hackers that had heard of it during a hackathon and thought this, problems were kind of cool and wanted to continue working on it. And then we had some DAO operators kind of flooding in as well, just as many as kind of some of these developers. Others self-identified as kind of curators, individuals that are looking for knowledge or looking to put information together, collate newspapers, that sort of stuff. And we had a couple of other different roles. So, predominantly OpSci came together as a community of researchers and engineers with kind of a smatter of different types of, I guess, you could consider like undergraduates or graduate students that might be considered scholars, or, business people that are involved in operations or entrepreneurship, what have you. And so we asked the question within this population of researchers, what do you want? What is it that you actually need? Why are you here in this digital space looking for either answers or looking for solutions? And it turned out that the biggest issue was, of course, funding for basic science. And crypto seemed to be booming at the time during COVID, and providing tons of opportunities, like through VitaDAO, for example, for scientific research. I think another key issue that we recognized early on, and this was tied right up there with low hassle funding, is both recognition and compensation, and not just financial compensation, but compensation in terms of resources, in terms of reputation, and so on for contributions to scientific knowledge. And coming close in a close third and fourth were global community collaboration connection, right? So scientists typically are isolated, but maybe they don't want to be. And a key to that is being able to work together on data sets, pool those data sets together, and track kind of contributions over time. So we took all of this over the past year, and we built little bits and pieces and iterative experiments thinking about how could we address some of these issues. And over the past 3 months, we've been putting together this concept of an open science society that puts these different technologies we've built together that links off-chain impact, right? Or it could be on-chain impact as well, with an open science practice, with things like, for example, proof of scholarship, right? So you put together a research proposal, it's been rigorously vetted, and it passed some DAO governance or community governance, and it's a good proposal, right? So that's a proof of scholarship that you have a meaningful pursuit of research or pursuit of knowledge or pursuit of a question you want to answer? And how about also maybe proof of mentorship, right? That's something that's incredibly undervalued, I think, or maybe just overlooked in just academics and scientific research overall. The knowledge isn't in the papers. The knowledge is going to be in the individuals that are custodying and bringing up different trainees. And they're often those that are holding, gating access to the hallowed lands, right? Whether it's a tenure track position or whether it's a fellowship or whatever, what have you. And, most importantly, kind of coming back to some of these issues with being able to actually prove that knowledge is knowledge and it's not just fabricated or made up or incorrectly, maybe through errors incorrectly done, but proof of replication, right? So we built 3 applications for this. Verse, which is an on-chain protocol for linking off-chain academic credentials on-chain and being able to allowing users to be able to choose how they want to represent themselves, their scientific persona online, either pseudonymously or anonymously. And this is built on zero-knowledge proofs. So there's a lot of flexibility there in how we can actually represent privacy and ownership in Web3 systems. Verse is kind of the key for tracking how different identities within the ecosystem of OpSci are collaborating and coordinating. So we have Commons, which is a data publishing platform, and Fellowship, which is basically at this point a GitHub repository that anyone can pull request and submit a proposal, get discussed by the community, and upon a successful vote within a fellowship season, they'll receive funding for that. So yeah, so I spoke a little bit, I'm going to speed through this real quick. So we spoke a little bit about Verse and how it kind of works, talked a little bit about some of these academic profiles. We talked about community and connection through fellowship and training and mentorship and being able to prove those things. A key kind of component to all of this is coming back to that #1 need that scientists requested, which is funding, getting low hassle funding. So when you're able to use something like a blockchain or some smart contract platform that gives you kind of an interoperable reference point, right, of data and metadata that's associated with perhaps impact, right? So someone actually verifies their identity, they link their ORCID, their academic credentials, perhaps other accounts, and as they're going through, their history is kind of being compiled over time. So we're implementing this concept of impact certificates, which came out of the Gitcoin DAO, I think just earlier this year, around May or June, and is now kind of being custodied by Protocol Labs under the Hyper Certificate project. And so they're putting together a specification that we're closely watching and implementing into this design, into this architecture design, where when you do produce those proofs of impact, right, you get minted an impact certificate. So you propose a successful proposal. Your fellowship proposal is now notarized as an impact or stamped as an impact certificate that's linked to your academic credentials, both off and on-chain within decentralized science ecosystems. And individuals in other impact markets that are run by other folks, like whether it's Protocol Labs or Gitcoin or what have you, can see these impact certificates and filter through different metrics, whether it's based off of citation count or review score or whatever, and be able to fund the individual directly, right? That fellowship proposal directly. So the last bit is the Web3 Data Commons, which I shared a little bit about, but the idea is how DAOs really kind of give us new tools for data governance and how we can incentivize open science practice by basically providing the same sort of mechanism with impact certificates. If you take the time to clean your data, put it in a specific format so that it's machine readable and can be validated by a smart contract as like BID standard or Neurodata Without Borders standard that makes it amenable for open science practices, then you get minted an impact certificate. Your project can then become retroactively funded for the work that you've done there. And that's something that's really unique to Web3 and specifically DAO structures, because a DAO or society can come together and decide which metrics they really want to best represent themselves as a community. And because they are an expert society that would be reviewing these anyway, they are in the best position to do that. There's also some interesting, I think, knock-on effects too with thinking about governance going beyond just token-based governance or where tokens are liquid or transferable, meaning that there's some sort of financial stake, moving more towards impact-based governance or reputation-based governance. And so that's something maybe we can chat a little bit about in the time that we have left. But just to wrap things up, what we've done here with OffSci Society is showed how you can take verified academic credentials, bootstrap a web-native digital community of science practitioners, and we've shown some examples of how things like proof of fellowship, proof of mentorship, proof of reproducibility can be used to siphon or direct pro and retroactive funding for work already done or good work that could be done, and where everything is really creator owned and the parameters that govern all of this are produced by the community.